Hi everyone, Jane Craig here, Brand Swan. I just want to take a minute to welcome you and also thank our sponsor, Global Merchant Partners. They're a credit card processing company and they specialize in letting you keep more of your money, which is pretty cool. So without them, doing the video content would be almost impossible. It's quite time consuming. And as you know, we do this just to highlight the women in this community. We don't really get anything in return. So thank you so much for GMP for letting us continue to do this for the 7th annual year. So without further ado, let us go into the interview.
So today we have Denée Crumrine. I'm very excited. We met each other in a past life several years ago, but Denée is devoted to her community and has a passion for giving back. And anyone who knows her, I think, can attest. Not only does she serve on numerous boards and committees, but she's also volunteers with organizations such as Exceptional Care for Children, the Junior Achievement of Delaware. When she's not lending a hand to these incredible causes, she is sharing her immense expertise at Highmark Health, where she specializes in corporate communications, community affairs, and, of course, giving. So welcome. Thank you for accepting. Who are you and how did it all start?
Sure. So I consider myself to be a communicator, a connector, and a community champion. Those are three things that I love, including alliteration. I got started in communications a long time ago, studying printing and graphic design actually in high school.
Hey, that's cool.
It took a long time to land in the kind of work that I'm doing now. And I had a lot of really great experiences that led me here. In terms of the connecting piece, I worked for the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce right out of college, and that is where I learned the power of networking and relationship building. And I find so much joy in being able to refer people to one another or to a business or an organization or a cause. And community has always been really important to me. It was modeled to me by my parents. I grew up volunteering through my church, and it was something that was a constant piece of doing life. And now with my job, I'm able to do a lot of great things for our community inherent to my work, which is such a blessing. But also, you mentioned a few organizations I'm involved with. I think it's just really important to take the things I've been given and try to give that back as much as possible.
Gosh, the one thing I love about the graphic design industry, I have a photography degree, by the way, but there was lots of graphic design in there, is that it's just so diverse. Like you can do anything with it. Obviously I'm not a photographer, and I would never shoot a person with a camera and make money on it. I'm more like wildlife or something, or pictures of my dog. But yeah, I just love that you can use graphic design and visual communications to solve all sorts of problems. And when you put it to good, I just feel like it's just such a rewarding experience. So knowing what you know now, like where you ended up, would you change like any of your educational background, or like what would you tell your 18-year-old self before she made that decision? What would you tell her? What one piece of advice?
That's such a big question.
I know.
And I think the short answer in terms of change anything is no. I think all the things that we experience and go through, the challenges, the triumphs, all of that really shapes where we end up. And I love where I've ended up. So I'm super thankful for the things that have brought me to this place, good and bad and in between. But I would tell my younger self, the thing we hear from our older peers all the time, right? Time moves fast and it moves faster as you get older. I am finding that to be so true at an alarming rate, to be honest. And I would just want to encourage my younger self to enjoy the things that are going on instead of wishing you were older or wishing something was over or wishing that something was coming next. And conversely, letting go of stuff that I now at 35 definitely don't remember, but I know upset me when I was 18.
Oh yeah, for sure. Things that we care about now that, don't even exist anymore, like Borders books, RIP. So you're involved in a lot, and I think a lot of us are. So how do you handle like the stress, and especially, when you're helping people who are in terminal situations. I'd imagine like there's a lot of empathy there. So how do you kind of get through it? Like just, working with these different people and, do you bring the stress home?
There was a time where I carried a lot of stress with me, and it wasn't good for my health, and it wasn't good for the people I was trying to serve.
Mm.
I'm thinking specifically right around COVID, when a lot of the health issues and community-based health issues were really exacerbated by that. And as someone who was part of committees that were reviewing grants, who were doing human services and basic needs, it was a position of power that felt very unwieldy, and that I felt very underqualified to be doing. And I know a lot of my peers who were on those committees as well felt the same way. We were all losing a lot of sleep, and we were all just in awe of how much need there was and how many resources we still lacked. So to that end, it's really just about doing the best you can with the information you're given. I had to learn to be okay in the uncomfortability of it all, but also know that the choices I made were aligned with my values and aligned with what I felt was the right or the best thing to do at a given moment. And so I think with stress in general, it's breathing through it. It's really assessing what is the best move, maybe not even the right or wrong move at that point. I think a lot of times it's just what's best right now, and making a choice that you can live with, and then letting it go, because carrying it with you is not really helpful to moving forward and making progress.
Yeah, I think when you tell yourself, you're not doing anything wrong and you are proud of what you've accomplished, I think you lose no sleep. You've done the best you could, that you're proud of your accomplishments. And even I don't think we ever feel like we're enough, and I don't know if that's specific with women or just, every person who is trying to grow, because, we're constantly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We constantly feel underqualified. But in this case, I think you're exactly where you should have been. And I bet your team had a lot of faith in you as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because we would have heard about it if you didn't. You would have been nominated.
That is true. That is true.
Did you find that you were able, I'm throwing a curveball at you here, but do you find that it's difficult to ask for help outside of that committee? Did you ever feel like you should have asked for help, or you guys just, or maybe that you were the help, you were the backup?
I did ask. Oh, I did ask for help. I have no problem
Yeah.
asking for help. A lot of the work that I do now in the community space and in health in general, I don't have a health background. Communications is one thing, that's a skill set that you can translate into different industries, no problem. I feel fairly confident in those kind of technical hard skills. And then when it came to the community piece, one, your passion can only carry you so far. So of course I love my community. I'm very passionate about giving back. But that doesn't mean I'm good at differentiating between us. What word do we want to use here? Financially solvent nonprofit versus one that's not, or is the leadership in place at this point in time the best leadership or the right leadership for them in this space? And so understanding the complexity of our nonprofit landscape and of the health of our very diverse communities throughout our state was knowledge that I am still collecting to this day, 4 years later. It's so vast. So no, I will always ask for help, because there are so many smart, amazing people in Delaware who know this thing or that thing or another thing or 17 things. And all of them are so willing to share that information that it doesn't make it difficult by any stretch. But yeah, I'm always one to ask for help because I know my limitations.
Oh gosh, this is a new thing for me to ask for help. Like I didn't have a mentor until like maybe year like 12 my business or something. I mean, a lot of people inspired me, absolutely.
Sure.
There were people there who I wanted to be when I grew up, but I would never ask for help.
How's
And
that
I'm
going for you,
finding
Jane?
that I know, don't cry, it's fine, I'm fine. But it's amazing because you as a resource are bringing in more resources, and that makes you even more valuable. So I think I just had to prove something to myself, but really the right thing to do is to bring in experts for experts so that the person you're helping gets the best you have, so Thank you for being humble enough to ask for help.
Oh.
And may we all aspire to do the same. Oh gosh. Well, okay. Well, we're kind of talking about this, but what is the most important personality trait and strength with someone in your industry or someone you're working with? Like, what are those qualities that make someone open-minded and asking for help? But beyond that, what other
Sure.
qualities do you notice?
I would say, and this is not being preferential to my own field, but communication skills are so critically important, because you have to know who you're speaking with, what message are you trying to convey, but what message are they trying to tell you? And if you're not adaptable in situations where you're going from stakeholder to stakeholder, or one day you're talking to a client versus your supervisor. In Delaware, you might be talking to an elected official one day, and then you're talking to a CEO of a company or the leader of a nonprofit. So being able to really adjust the way in which you're portraying your messaging, and I'm not saying spin, but in order to get your message across effectively and clearly, and also being receptive to what's being communicated to you, is really going to take you far in any field, in any role, especially in Delaware, where we're so small and so close knit. We don't really have much space and room for misunderstandings, especially if they can be avoided. And then kind of on the softer side of things, I'd say grace is super important. I think if we can give each other the space to be ourselves and be human, assuming best intentions and even owning up to our own mistakes or imperfections, really creates a much safer space for trial and error, for solving problems, for collaboration, and really for building trust to make progress in whatever project you're doing. So again, I think they're both two things that are going to be important for any industry, but those are definitely two things that have come through for me in this role, both on the technical side and the interpersonal side.
Yeah, communication is so important. And I know different industries call it different things, but someone reached out to me and they were like, do you do communications? And I'm like, duh. I mean, I write, we do all the writing, we do all the design work, but when you go into like the higher functioning nonprofits and companies, like they actually have an entire communications department. I'm like, all you guys do is just write and clarify. Amazing. Like for us, that's like such a duh thing that we didn't even think about someone needing just that aspect.
Right.
And honestly, thank God, because we're bombarded by so much information.
Yeah.
It's to be able to get what you want to say out concisely and still have that emotional impact is definitely a skill. Definitely. Absolutely. Gosh. So, okay. I've done a little bit more talking than I usually do, but what's one question that you wished I asked you that I didn't so far?
I love talking about one of the most transformative experiences that I've ever had. So I guess if you would ask Denée, what is a transformative experience?
What is the most transformative experience of your life?
It was meeting a young child named Andrew, and we met at Exceptional Care for Children, which you mentioned being familiar with. And when we met, he was 4, and I was terrified to volunteer with him. I was asked to mentor him one-on-one because I had no background in clinical care or special education or any of the things that really would apply to his situation. And ECC was like, no, you're going to be great. You guys are the perfect match. And I had no idea that about 13 years later, he would still be playing a huge role in my life. We would still be incredibly close. And that I would have had over a decade watching this child achieve milestones that doctors said he would never reach, that I would watch him grow into the young man that he has become, and that I am now actually playing a more active role in his regular care needs. And yeah, it's he has completely changed who I am as a person and influenced the way that I view and live my life. And so I always love to talk about Andrew.
Are you like the cool aunt, Andrew?
I think so. Yeah. It's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. No kids here, but I think I'm the coolest aunt. Sorry to all the other
I'm sure
aunties
you are.
out there.
I believe that.
Yeah. That's really awesome. I'm like processing that. I have so many questions, like, you feel like, the Andrew's here and this is an expected lifespan, and then it just keeps going and you don't know when it's going to stop, but it's going to stop.
Yeah.
That must be the anxiety and stress, and that must be, I'm just thinking about it, I'm getting teared up, like just like debilitating. But that's awesome that you had such a decade experience. And what
Yep,
do you do
and
when you mentor kids, by the way? Like, what does that relationship look like? I know for Andrew it was a little bit different, but
yeah, Andrew is different because he just was living in a facility with no real regular non-nursing staff adult presence. And so it was a lot of him bossing me around, actually. But we did a lot of
nice.
crafts and watching his favorite TV shows and that kind of thing. But I also mentor college students at University of Delaware. I also have interns at Highmark. And so it's really important to me that the same way in which doors were held open for me as a young person, that I do the same for them. And I'm so thankful for people seeing potential in me and investing time and energy into making sure I could reach that potential, that whether it is Andrew and his peers at Exceptional Care, or whether it's students at UD or the, about to graduate college students that are coming in, I think it's so imperative that they know someone's in their corner, even if it's just for the short time that I'm around, and that someone else believes in them. And, again, I guess just paying it forward, but I think it is important to make those connections and invest that kind of time and energy into other people.
Yeah, the biggest impact, I've done a ton of mentoring, by the way, just never had a mentor for whatever reason, but I would say the most rewarding part is somehow convincing them that they have value. I had one person come to me, 700 hours of internships. And I'm like, why don't you have a job yet? Like a full-time job doing what you want, And she was working part-time someplace, just kind of whatever. And I'm like, why don't you start applying for agencies? So she did, and she got a job at an agency, and she continues to get jobs at agencies, of course. And it's like no one told her that she could stop interning now.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, dude, you're already there. You don't need to intern.
Right.
We need to pay you for your work. And just me saying that changed her entire mindset, right?
Yes.
Like gave her permission to.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's
so what's the most rewarding thing about what you do? And and maybe it's different answers for different things that you do, but either focusing on Highmark or because I know you do a lot of giving there as well. I'm kind of curious what that looks like, but.
Sure. Yeah. So Highmark is awesome in the sense that we have resources that we set aside for the community, right? And it is hard working for a company that is kind of synonymous with bad, right? You think of a health insurance company and most people don't love their health insurer. But Highmark has been really good to me and to our community. And so we do it a few different ways. We do sponsorships, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right? People come, they have an event, they, want you to buy a table or what have you. We do a lot of that. And we love being a part of our community because we serve people, right? We're serving people. And that's really a big part of the people in our community may or may not have our product, but we're absolutely trying to make them healthier. And so the other part of the role that includes grant making, which is to improve health outcomes throughout our state in a variety of different ways, has been really meaningful and impactful for our state. So, I mean, we invested $10 million last year in 2022. We'll probably invest about $5 million in 2023. And I say invest because it's not charitable giving. It's not just a donation. It's investing in a program or a project that is actually aimed at reducing health disparities, increasing access to care, solving for an issue around chronic conditions, or insert any kind of health issue here. And we don't limit ourselves to what kinds of health issues that we invest in. We really look to our communities to communicate with us what they're seeing and the people that they serve. And it has been so rewarding. But I did touch on it earlier too, right? It's overwhelming, again, the need that we see and the lack of resources. And so it really is kind of what lights the fire in your belly to kind of dig deeper and figure out how can we solve for these issues? Where else can we get resources, and how can we be more efficient and leverage what we do have? So it's my job, but also not my job as we get into those kind of bigger, more complex conversations, which also bring me a lot of joy because I get to work with a lot of really smart people who are trying to fix the same problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of problems in the world.
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot. We can't address them all. But in this moment right now, like what's the biggest change you want to see in the world and how do you feel like you're working towards that? I know you have
Sure.
an answer, so
I do. It's just exactly what we talked about around kind of mentoring and
yeah.
bringing others up. I would love to see more people believing in themselves. I took for granted for many years that there were people in my life who shepherded me and guided me and gave me good feedback, encouraged me, all those things. And as I got older and worked with kids in underserved areas or just met young people who were trying to figure out what they want to do, the revelation that or realization that they had never had anyone telling them, to your point, you can do this, you can be this, or you do have the skill set for this, or you could do that if you do this. And I think that the idea of all the kids out there who don't know, you use the word value, right? Their worth or their potential just breaks my heart. And so I take it upon myself. Like I said, I do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of work with youth in particular, because I think that is what's going to get them further. And that's what's going to most improve our community. If everyone has that belief in them. I don't know, I'm thinking of Ted Lasso right now, right? And just bringing everyone's confidence to the forefront, and nurturing what it is they're bringing to the table.
That's lovely. So, Denée, this has been lovely, but tell us, where can we find you online? Where do you hang out?
Where do I hang out? LinkedIn, absolutely. Hit me up on
Okay.
LinkedIn. That's where I'm the
We'll
most
put the we'll
active.
put the link below for you guys so you
Yes.
can go and see Denée.
And at networking
Awesome.
events.
Yes, and all around Delaware.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Honestly, this has been my pleasure, and I'm just so glad to have you as a part of this series. And I hope that you nominate someone next year.
I absolutely will. And I thank you for the privilege.